for attending today. My name is Nancy Cutrell, and I am actually doing a presentation for Oakland City University. The class is Business 330, which is Principles of Finance. The assignment was actually to choose a publicly traded company, do the little bit of history on the company, examine the financials, and actually compare these financials to the most competitive company that's out there that goes against the one that I selected. And what I selected was the Finish Line. I am actually a consumer of Finish Line. I like the products that they sell, and I thought that would be great to learn a little bit more history of the company itself. So actually I titled this Crossing the Finish Line because I thought it was a great pun to the title of the company, and actually at the end I'm going to let you know whether I would personally put my hard-earned money into the Finish Line. Okay, the mission statement of Finish Line is, our mission is to connect to young, fashion-conscious individuals through a premium brand experience featuring the best selection of authentic, sport-inspired products. We define this premium experience through our product, our presentation, and our people. And again, as I pointed out in the beginning, I am a consumer of Finish Line, so I will make note of the products that they do sell are very, very of fine quality, and also the presentation. Anytime you walk by any storefront of Finish Line, you are going to see they put the best and the brightest attire and shoes on display because they want to draw the customers in. And what people see on the front is what they want to see when they step inside the doors. A little history, which is very interesting, and probably the most interesting thing that I discovered with Finish Line itself, is that it actually started in the state of Indiana. That was probably the most fascinating fact I learned through this whole process. There were 3 individuals that started this, and what they did is they bought a franchise into what once was called the Athlete's Foot. And it was founded in 1976, like I said, headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana. They actually covered parts of Indiana, Louisville area with their multiple stores. They wanted to expand even further in other states, but all the franchises had been sold for the Athlete's Foot. So actually what they did to be able to have their own is they founded the Finish Line. So this allowed them all the franchises that they wanted to have to expand further. And this actually, they incorporated the Finish Line July 2nd of 1982. They did their IPO, which is initial public offering, on June the 16th in 1992. And they actually opened up with $11 a share. And for a new company, this is actually a very great offering for something that not many people had heard of at that time. And they was able to do 2 splits in 1996 and again in 2004. The recent statistics based upon this, and this is actually from the financial statement that was of April 25th of 2014, just last year. They currently have 878 stores in 47 states. So you can tell that they have multiple stores throughout the country. There are 645 stores that you see in the malls, just like the one we have actually here in Evansville, Indiana, and 185 of those stores are within Macy's. So actually Macy's buys franchise license of Finish Line, so their store is actually in place inside the mall. They have 48 run-in specialty stores. Me personally being a runner, I wish that we had one of those here. But actually to see the run-in specialty stores is very, pragmatic when it comes to seeing, out in Boston where you have a lot of runners known for the Boston Marathon. So they know where to hit the high points of where the biggest runners are going to be, and that's where they place these locations at. And then they also have their online store, which is my personal favorite, finishline.com, because you are able to see what they might not have in stores, what is on clearance. You can get last year's running shoes at a much discounted price. So this is how they're able to offer, things at a lesser price through the online store, and it ships directly to your home. Okay, so now what I want to go into is the financials, where I said that I selected their biggest competitor, and their biggest competitor is the Foot Locker. And if you see, when you look at first comparison, you think, well, the Foot Locker, their stores are about half the size of Finish Line. Because Finish Line are known for the size of their store. But it's not a matter of the size, it's the matter of the quality of the product that they deliver to the customers, and how the sales overcome through their income statements, their balance sheets, and the cash flow. You're going to see on each of those statements when you look at their financials. So what I did is I took all of the financial ratios and I compared these side by side. In the next few slides, you're actually going to see how Finish Line fared against the Foot Locker. The first one is the current ratio. This is the basic one that many companies use, where you take the assets and you divide those from the liabilities. And as you can see here, the Finish Line was a 2.9 ratio and the Foot Locker was 3.6. So with their assets divided by their liabilities, Foot Locker is already taken off in this competition. The next one is the asset test ratio, which sometimes it could be called the quick test ratio. This is a more accurate number when you're looking at the assets and liabilities, because we're going to automatically take that inventory right off the top of those assets. So it kind of gives you a more real number that you want to look at. And as you can see, the Foot Locker still scored ahead. Even though that it was just 0.4 of a point, they still scored ahead. So that's kind of, they're pulling out of that lead that they already started in the competition. The next one is the inventory turnover. And you want to think about the cost of goods sold over their inventory. You know, what is the turnover? Are they having a lot of stuff that's sitting on the shelves? Are they able to process those in the sales of their goods? And as you can see, they are even keel. So Foot Locker could not move ahead of Finish Line at this point. So Finish Line's starting to hold their own just a little bit on this ratio. The next one is the DSO ratio, which is the days sales outstanding. This is where you take your accounts receivable and you divide it by your accounts sales, and you spread that over a year, and the ratio we use is 360 days. And as you can see, Foot Locker has no accounts receivable, and you wonder, how is that highly possible? But if you look at each individual franchise, they're the ones that handle all, the individual, like, if it's like the credit cards that come in. But the accounts receivable for Foot Locker that is outstanding, they don't have that. Because if you want products, like through the vendors or anything like that, they want their money up front. So you have to pay. So they will not have any outstanding accounts receivable. And this is remarkable for a company. The next is the fixed assets turnover ratio. And this is your sales over your fixed assets. And we all know what the fixed assets are when it comes to the equipment and everything that we have. Those are your fixed assets. And Finish Line, they fared pretty well, but Foot Locker just far exceeded that. It was, almost double of what the Finish Line had. So as you can tell, the Foot Locker is actually starting to pull away on their lead again. The total assets turnover is where you have the sales over your total assets. And this was extremely close on that. And finally, Finish Line has actually scored ahead. Even though the Foot Locker, if you think about the ratios I've already shown you, they are still ahead, but it's good to see the Finish Line is actually starting to make their mark out on the track. If you look at it in a track sense, they're actually starting to move ahead just a little bit. They're just not caught up to the Foot Locker or even stepped ahead of them just yet. The debt to total assets ratio, when you look at the liabilities over the assets, okay, this is really important personally when you think of debt, you want to think, what is your debt to income type of mentality? And I tell you, when you first look at a number, you're like, yes, Finish Line actually scored one ahead. Their number's better. No. In reality, you don't want that debt to be higher. You want that debt to be lower. You don't want debt in your company. So actually, Foot Locker, they scored ahead by a mere, 0.3%. So again, Foot Locker is still pulling ahead on that lead. The times interest earned, and this right here, it's easy as can be. They have no interest. Neither companies had either interest. And that's a good thing when you're looking at companies. So both of them, they came out even. So that's not a problem at all, because you don't want interest in your company. You don't want those that you have to owe the IRS. At any time, do you want to have to owe? So both of these came out even. Now, even though this is a good thing for the Finish Line, the Foot Locker, still ahead. The fixed charge coverage ratio, again, this involves when you're looking at the leases, they didn't have any leases, neither one of them had leases, and neither one of them had any interest. So again, they both even keel. This is a good sign for the Finish Line, because this is not allowing the Foot Locker to take another step forward in this race that we're doing right now between these two. The net profit margin ratio, this is your net income over sales. Not bad, But if you look at the Foot Locker, they were a whole 2%. Numbers matter. If you want to think about, you look, oh, that's not much. But it could be the difference between a gold and a silver if we're in the Olympics of who's winning this race. So they're jumping ahead again. The poor finish line is starting to see a little bit of dust in the trail. Your return on assets ratio, which is your net income over your total assets. And as you look at this, Foot Locker again is still exceeding by quite a bit. It's just really hard for the finish line to try to grab, even get any traction in their race right now. The return on equity ratio, when you look at the net income that's available to your common stockholders, okay, if we were to crash and burn, the common stockholders in this, they want to know what are they getting out of this, okay? That's what I would want to know. If I'm going to put my money into a company, what am I going to get out of this based upon their equity? This right here is extremely important to these stockholders. They want to know, what am I going to get? And if you look at this, Foot Locker exceeds. Now, if Finish Line, heaven forbid they were to crash, they still have a good positive percentage, but Foot Locker, there is just no stopping them at all.